Uh, hey everybody, welcome, welcome to the oh, JR here, welcoming you back to another another part of of um, the Life is Strange Heatwaves novel. So from we will be continuing with um was it chapter 10? Yeah, 10. So where we left off with was we had our big big confrontation with what was it Clover. Yeah. Opal is Clover's sister who tried to kill herself again apparently by mixing what was it, muscle? I believe they said muscle relaxers. They said the specific drug, but I forget. I forget official drug names sometimes. Uh, and the and some alcohol, which led to her passing out, needing Steph and Alex to call an ambulance for her, and then Clover came over and is was pretty confrontational to them because they think they're paparazzi trying to get some dirt or scoop on their mayor dad. So so there's that. Uh, um, and they were sent over to the mayor's house because there was a car that they weren't using that they could use the pistons in that car so they could replace so Steph and Alex can replace the pistons in their car so that way they could get to Fort Collins to do their little gig for their little band show. So that obviously didn't work out with the whole suicide attempt at first when they got there. But once Clover kind of calmed down, she took them to the car to get the parts from it that they could use. But at the same time, Alex used her powers to get deeper into Clover's feelings. Found out that Clover's in a relationship with Jonah from before, but also seems to still be in a rocky relationship with him right now. And as you know, Jonah is one of the people running for I forget what position of politics he's running for. I think it was maybe governor or senator or something, but some high political position. Uh, so so that ranks some messes with some plans, and then that kind of get even more confrontational with Clover a little bit, but then smooth over things a little bit. So now we're gonna see what they're gonna do with be able to put in the car parts. Are they gonna be able to leave now? But Alex seems to be more motivated to help everybody than leave at this point. So so we'll see. Hold on, be right back. as I was saying, so since that happened, um, where as I said, we'll see if they'll be able to get into the car and do the thing. What's up, everybody? And we'll see how Alex is going to help everyone with this situation, and see how well Opal is doing after trying to kill herself for some reason. Again, because she also killed herself in the emotional flashback that Alex witnessed. So we'll see if we get an answer to all that. So in the meantime, let's get this show on the road while I eat some pasta.
10. Gabe. I blink my eyes awake to find that Steph has wrapped her arms around my waist in the night. I can feel her behind me, making the perfect big spoon. I feel her squeeze me gently. Hey, she whispers, nuzzling her face against my shoulder. You ready to meet Mr. Big Shot Politician Man? No, I absolutely am not. But I have to be. I nod. You can still back out any time, you know. She yawns, resting her chin against my back. Don't think you're in too far to change your mind. You always have a choice. Thanks, Steph, I say, peeling the covers off and pulling myself away from her and out into the cold room. For a Colorado desert town running out of water, Barbazal can get hella freezing when the sun goes down. So, what do you think you'll be like? Asked Steph, swinging her legs over the side of the bed and reaching for her hat. Especially since he's expecting Miss Magazine-ready farmer bombshell Clover, and he's getting us two lug nuts. Lug nuts? I chuckle. Speak for yourself. I'm feeling pretty magazine-ready myself after that shower last night. Yeah, it was about time for both of us. She smiles. Can't believe the convincing it took for Owen to say yes to a shower. Even in a drought, humans gotta bathe. I hear a tap, tap, tap from outside the window, and my eyes follow the sound. Just outside, I see Owen, still in a robe and slippers, tapping his finger on a meter outside by the house. My smile falls as I realize what I have to tell her. Hey, Steph, I was thinking maybe I should go see Jonah, like, alone. Steph looks over her shoulder at me, eyebrows raised skeptically. Are you crazy? Yes, we've been over this, I grin. But Steph isn't smiling back. She pushes herself up from the bed and leans over it, leveling her eyes at me. You're asking me to let you go by yourself into the woods to meet a strange man? What if he kills you? What if he drowns you in that lake?
You would think, after what Alex experienced in True Colors with Jed, she would be a lot more extremely cautious about a going out in the middle of the woods alone to meet somebody. To be fair, though, it's not like Jonah's going to be prepared for really much of anything, because he isn't really expecting to try to attempt to murder somebody. uh, so, so there's that. But I am with Steph, though. Going Alone isn't the smartest idea.
There is no lake anymore, Steph, remember? Okay, so one murder method taken care of. I guess we're good to. Hell no! Steph, I stop myself, soften my voice, but stay firm. I'm not asking. The silence that settles into the room makes me so uncomfortable. I'll say anything to get out of it. Come on, think about it. Jonah's already expecting Clover. This bench is probably their secret hideout or something. They both grew up here. Maybe they used to sneak off to that bench to make out when they were teens? Yeah, exactly, she says. And if he gets irate about having his personal space invaded, you'll need someone with some city grit. Please let me go with you. I'll just climb a tree nearby or something and watch. Laughter bursts forth from somewhere deep in my gut. You want to stalk us like a panther or something? No, she laughs with me. Just, I don't know, easier than digging a hole and covering my head with leaves. Okay, that's probably the most city grit thing you've ever said. People only do that in movies. Okay, maybe don't make a habit out of meeting men in the woods and you won't have to know shit like that. We stand smiling at each other for a long, long time. Then she throws her arms around me in defeat. Ugh, be careful, okay? She insists. I'm serious. The last time you left to meet a man in the woods, you fell down a mine shaft. Her voice breaks at that last word, and I shut my eyes and squeeze her tighter. I remember when I hobbled back to the Black Lantern, all scraped up, concussed with 2 broken ribs, and Steph leapt out of her chair to run to me. When I told all of Haven Springs what had happened, that Jed Lucan had shot me and let me fall 200 feet down a mine shaft, the first words out of her mouth were, I believe you.
Well, technically, the first words out of Steph when she saw you was, "Oh my God!" So, like, she was ridiculously shocked at the state that she was in when she walked into the bar anyway. But yeah, it's pretty crazy that besides being grazed by a bullet on the side of your head, falling down the mine shaft, it's kind of surprising that all she suffered was 2 broken ribs. I'm assuming she broke 1 rib on each fall. But because she fell down after getting shot, fell halfway because she landed on a piece of wood that was in the middle of the shaft. Woke up, tried to get up on the thing at the same time the piece of wood broke, and then she fell the rest of the way. So I'm assuming 1 rib for each half of the fall. So, but you would think falling from that she would have had a lot bigger injuries than just 2 broken ribs. Talk about being extremely lucky. But yet again, the luckiest thing out of that whole fall was her glasses were completely pristine the whole time. No bent no bent arms, no cracked scratched lenses, no nothing. Those glasses were the most sturdy thing in the whole game.
And I know that whatever happens in the woods this morning, she'll believe me again. I will, I say, and I mean it. Thanks, Steph. The trek back up to Clover Big's house is harder than it was yesterday, and I can't decide if it's because I was with Steph yesterday or because yesterday I didn't have soreness creeping into every muscle below my waist. If I'm going to be standing on stage for hours at a time rocking out on my guitar, I've got to get better stamina than this. Step after step, I feel the burn in my quads grow, and I wonder if I'm doing the right thing. Maybe Steph was right. Here I am, 2 days into my stay in a brand new town, waltzing up to the mayor's house, following a trail in the woods to an abandoned bench where I'm supposed to meet a stranger who's also a pretty famous candidate for the Colorado Senate seat. Yeah, this is crazy.
Okay, so it was a senator. Okay, so it is a Senate election. Okay.
I look up and see the house, larger now than when I first started my walk, of course, but still far off. I take a deep breath and remember Gabe. I think of what he would say to me. Something like, "You can't see injustice and do nothing about it." No, that's what I'd say to me. "Go where the wind takes you." No, that sounds like a version of Gabe from Wish.com. I stop and sigh. When I lost him, I swore I'd keep his memory alive, that even if it had been years since I'd last seen him, I'd never, ever, ever forget him. But here I am, losing his voice, losing his turns of phrase, losing his face. I remember him less and less vividly. Gabe Chen. "I'm sorry," I apologize into the wind. I try to picture him standing ahead of me on the trail. He would shrug and say something snarky yet wise, practical, like, "You're really gonna meet some weirdo in the woods?" I smirk. That's the Gabe I remember. "He's not some weirdo," I say aloud, pressing on. "He's the answer to Barbazal's problems." "Anyway," continues his voice in my head, "the answer to Barbazal's problems, huh? That's a lofty title. This guy sounds like God." I snicker. "Not quite," I say. "Just a guy with feelings." "Those can be dangerous," he would say. "Did you at least bring mace?" "Shouldn't need it," I say, feeling determination grow with each step. He's got a lot to protect, and something tells me committing an act of violence wouldn't exactly help his political career. The worst that can happen is he swears at me and leaves. I lose my footing and slip on the leaves, catching myself. "Jesus," I exclaim. "Not quite," Gabe would say. "Speaking of deities, though, it sounds like you're trying to be the answer to Barbazal's problems." "Okay," I say with a shrug and an implied, "and?" What if I am? What if all Jonah needs is someone to talk to, someone to be real with? And if Gabe were right here, I already know what he'd say, clear as day. Sometimes the fakest people are covering up a lot of hurt. I guess that's true. But whatever Jonah Macon might be hiding, I'm ready to see it. It can't be worse than watching someone cradle their sister as she bleeds out on the bathroom floor, can it? "When you see that hurt," he would say, "be ready to walk away." That sends a chill down my spine. But I set my brows in determination. I've made up my mind. If Jonah Macon won't talk to me, then so be it. If he will talk to me, I'll just toss out what he said, dump it into the bucket of trauma I've already been through, and push it down deep in my mind until I can barely remember it. I march forward before I can let my imagined Gabe voice talk me out of it. Or, I guess, scare me out of it. "I'll do what I have to do," I say. And suddenly, I can't imagine what he would say to that. Probably nothing. He'd just let me go. I'm fighting tears as I make my way up the hill. I walk, and soon I arrive at the house. The tree line across the lawn is calling me. Through the trees until you reach the old stump, Clover said. The magnolia tree flickers with uncertain colors, and I get the overwhelming feeling that it's wishing me luck. Well, 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 comes a voice from way too close. I jump so hard I nearly fall over. But it's only Opal, lounging in a lawn chair with a glass of something. I hope to God it isn't wine, especially since it's 5 a.m. I look down at her wrists, both of which have deep scars I never noticed before. She follows my gaze to the one holding the glass. Stitches. Happened a while ago. She shrugs nonchalantly. I have to ask. Opal, was last night an accident? She looks genuinely confused. Which part? Us meeting? Probably. No, you mixing alcohol and muscle relaxants. Oh, that. How does she sound so aloof? I'll let you decide, she says flippantly, taking another sip. Is that wine? You can also decide that. I can feel my blood boiling, and it must show on my face because she rolls her eyes, sets the glass down, and pushes herself to her feet. It's just water, she says, but around here, it's even more valuable than wine. What are you doing back here anyway? Oh, hell. What do I say? I'm here to meet your sister's secret boyfriend in the woods, but it's okay because your sister told me to, but not for kinky reasons. It's to worm my way into his deepest, darkest secrets and memories and convince him to give a shit about his hometown drying up and wasting away. I can't say any of that. Wanted to make sure you were okay after yesterday. Great, Alex. How do I get into the woods after just checking on Opal? She'll suspect something immediately. Oh, she says. She looks surprised. Bewildered? Well, I'm fine. Her head erupts in blue, and I realize she's very not fine. You sure about that? I ask. She looks affronted. Why are you asking anyway? You don't have your own business to mind, especially at such an ungodly hour. Oh, right. But I don't back down. I'm asking because I care. And it's true. The same reason why I'm talking to Jonah Macon. She narrows her eyes up at me, then pushes herself out of the chair. She nearly stumbles, and I go to catch her, but she knocks my hand away. Shouldn't she be on watch after what happened yesterday? Opal, you have to take care of yourself, I say. Why? She hisses. What for? So I can keep living in this hellhole? The ground ain't the only thing drying up around here. Look at the businesses closing up shop. When's the last time old Elias down at the shop had any cars come through there? Clover said he's so deep in shit, he doesn't even keep the store stocked. He knows he's going under. He knows this whole damn town is going under. The only reason we haven't already is because Denver has everything we need. I stare at Opal for a long, long time, and while I wait for that blue aura to turn red, it doesn't. It stays bright blue. She loves Barbazal. It's clear in her voice, in her gestures, in her wide, terrified eyes. You don't want to leave, do you? I ask. I can't leave, she says, looking out over the lawn to that magnolia tree. Barbazal is all I know. Daddy won't leave because Mama's here. My sisters have all left with the loves of their lives because Daddy's here. What am I supposed to do? Go out on my own? Oh man, that's painfully relatable. I did, I reply. Not flippantly, not carelessly, determinedly. I did, I repeat, hearing my voice crack. Sure, it wasn't my choice. 1 minute I had Mom and Dad and Gabe, and the next I'd lost them all, one by one. I was in foster care for half my childhood. I was thrown into being on my own, and then when I got to Haven Springs and lost Gabe, Steph and I left together. Your sisters, I begin. Do you ever call them? They've got preoccupations, she says with a flippancy that's clearly masking her pain. Babies and careers and such. No time for a single auntie. Do you have any friends? Just you and Steph. Holy shit, she's already calling us friends. I mean, cool, but also, has she ever had friends? Well, then you should know that friends get to demand you take care of yourself. Or what? She asks, folding her arms across her cleavage, bringing her breasts together distractingly. Don't look, I tell myself. This is a serious conversation.
Okay.
Or else, I say with an eye roll. And since Steph and I will be on the road in a couple of days, know that people outside Barbazal aren't that bad. People outside Colorado aren't that bad. And I mean, I haven't been out of the US, but I'm sure people all over the world aren't that bad. And if you're curious, I'm sure you can find someone to explore with you. She shakes her head. Why are you really up here? She asks. My heart sinks, and I try to think of another lie. Clover sent you, didn't she? What makes you think that? I ask, hoping my face doesn't betray the fact that I'm sweaty as fuck trying to lie my way out of this. That just sounded like something she'd say, is all. Oh, I say. Opal wraps her white shawl more snugly around her shoulders and shivers a little, even though it's decently hot out here. I'm going inside, she says, turning suddenly and heading back toward the house. Then she glances over her shoulder. If you're going to meet Jonah in the woods, you should bring him proof that Clover sent you. What the hell? Opal, Don't bother lying, she interrupts, looking me in the eyes and smiling. I know you came to see me too. Then she winks, slides the glass door open, and slips inside. I stand there for a moment watching the house. So Opal knows about Clover and Jonah. I get the feeling there are more secrets in this town than people are letting on. I adjust my shoulder bag, turn my gaze to the trees, and set off toward the woods to find the stump.
At least that made things a little easier. So somebody else who's also keeping the same secret, so there you go. Everybody's fine. Alright. Be right back. Alright.
11. Into the woods. Run through the woods until you find the old stump, she said. You can't miss it, she said. I've walked almost a mile, I'm sure, and I don't see a goddamn stump. I walk on, knowing that if I try to turn around or something, I'm going to end up even more lost out here. I pull out my phone to text Steph and let her know I'm all right, since I've been gone way longer than I expected. 5:15 a.m. Shit. It's been an hour already. I hope it takes Jonah at least 15 minutes to run to the lake. And I have no cell reception. Fantastic. Stupid cell phone, stupid stump. Oof. My foot catches on something, and I go hurtling forward, slamming into the ground so hard my glasses fly off and land in the grass. My chest feels tight, and that fall made me dizzier than I thought it could. I erupt in coughs. I've knocked the wind out of myself. I push myself up, and my hands come away from the ground, or floor, whatever hard thing I'm standing on. Sticky. Oh, yuck, I whine, wiping my hands furiously against my pants. But the stickiness only dries and gets tacky. Ugh. I need soap and water. I take a few steps back and look down, kick away some leaves, and realize I've found the stump. I grab my glasses and slide them on. And yeah, Clover was right. If there weren't so many leaves on the ground, I would have noticed. This stump is a good 5 feet by 5 feet. It's huge. Holy shit. I wonder how old this thing is. I mean, I would count the rings if I had the time, which I don't. So I force myself to keep walking, tear my eyes from this magical old thing. Feels like the elder of the woods, honestly, and turn left to look for the clothesline. It's a much shorter walk. There's a colorful string of flags tied about 50 feet across through the trees, and I follow it until I spot a cluster of white trees with flaky dark brown bark and branches missing all the way up and down the trunk, almond shape. They look like eyes. These must be the birch trees. Now I'm getting somewhere. Follow the birches until you find the lake. Turn right and follow the footpath. The sun is just starting to rise in the distance, orange filling up the sky where blue once was, making for a kaleidoscopic sunrise of reds, purples, and blues. And I wonder to myself, is this the Earth's way of saying she's got mixed feelings about us humans? Or how we've treated her? It sounds so corny in my head, but what if with every sunrise the Earth is telling us that she's deeply, deeply hurt by us? Wish that logic would work on Jonah. I take a deep breath and sigh as I reach the last of the birch trees, and my feet find loose, rocky gravel. I turn right and follow the footpath, keeping my eyes moving for the old bench where I'm supposed to meet him. I wonder how long he's been meeting Clover out here, and how often. Whenever he's in town, I guess. And given his job, that's probably not very often. Why keep it a secret anyway? I hear footsteps behind me, and I whip around to see very little in the dark. Hello? I ask into the early morning. Jonah? More footsteps, and I gasp as a black shadow emerges from the trees, the size of a small dog. And I realize, with its feet going thump thump ksh, thump thump ksh, it's only a nutria. It thump thump cushes its way across the footpath and slips into the lake as quietly as a snake, and I smile. So there's wildlife out here after all. But the water is a good 10 feet down the embankment. Rings of dried silt line the walls, reveal the declining water level. This lake used to be twice as full of water, I realize, and my heart sinks. I walk on. The bench looks exactly as promised. Old, and like a bench. It's so decrepit looking, I'm worried if I sit down it'll disintegrate into dust under my ass. But I test it out, lowering myself as carefully as possible, and although it's been here a long while, beaten to death by the environment, much like the town of Barbazal, it's still standing. I feel the morning breeze roll through and prickle my skin, and I look out at the lake, which is bigger than I expected for a town going through a drought. I wonder what the environmental provisions are around this water. Is it clean enough to filter and drink? Is it being used for something? Are people siphoning it off to water their crops? Is that legal? Will there come a time when people decide they don't care about the law if it means going without a resource so precious? I sigh and hope Clover was right. I hope Jonah takes his 5 a.m. run. I look down at my phone clock. 5:25. I hope I'm not too late. I look around and realize just how alone I am out here, and I smile. It feels good, almost. Silence, besides the chirping of the crickets and, now that I really stop and listen, the occasional croak of frogs. This place feels more like Haven Springs than I realized, and I find myself yearning for music, my fingers itching to pick the strings of my guitar. Something about being alone, especially by water, spurs me on to create. The ocean, a river or stream, this lake. I wonder what it's called. Given the name of the Crown Inn and the plate and skate, it's probably got some cheesy name like It's a Boat Time Lake, or worse. I sigh again. Maybe I don't have my guitar, but I have my voice, so I hum. Drive into the middle of nowhere with peaches on my plate, and I think of Steph, and I wonder what she's doing right now. Her words flood my head until I can think of nothing else. The last time you went to see a man in the woods, you fell down a mine shaft. I really, really hope this is a good idea. Is that the mooring shores? Comes a voice from behind me, driving a spike straight through my train of thought. I whip around so fast my neck clicks, and I wonder if I've literally just broken it. Ugh, I groan, rubbing the pain out of my collarbone area and studying the source of the voice. Jonah stands there, in electric blue basketball shorts and a gray t-shirt, hands in his pockets, fitness watch around his wrist, and a big smile on his face. But it's not that fake smile he was wearing at the parade, the one I've seen on TV. He's smiling at me like we know each other, like we're friends or something. Don't be mad, I say, but it comes out more like a question. I rise to my feet and tuck my hands behind my back, willing myself to wait until that color blooms over his head and his back is turned before I start digging into his brain. Clover must have sent you. He finishes the sentence for me, stepping forward and sliding onto the old bench beside where I'm standing. So this must be important. He smiles up at me warmly, and now that he's sitting so close to me, I can see the red flush in his cheeks. Oh, he says, and checks his watch like he might have forgotten something. I watch as he clicks an app. 3 little dots light up along the bottom, and a big green 0 pops up in the middle. Oh, wow, he says, looking up at me in surprise. So you're not paparazzi? How'd you know? I ask. Well, for one, Clover wouldn't tell you about my secret run if you were. But for two, you don't have any recording devices going. Your app told you that? Can't be too careful, he shrugs. Damn, I can't imagine leading a life so public that protecting your privacy requires device scanning apps to tell you if what you're saying is safe. Well then, he begins with a big sigh, clasping his hands in his lap and looking out over the lake. Why are you here? Actually, let's start with names. I'm Jonah Macon. He reaches out for a handshake. I smile. This guy is actually pretty handsome when he's not all buttoned up and Ken dollified for the cameras. Handsome in a real-life person kind of way. Alex Chen, I say, taking his hand and shaking it. Lovely to meet you, Alex. How can I help you? Oh God, where to even begin? What the hell is up with this drought? What the hell is up with this dam? What the hell is up with your secret relationship with Clover? What the hell is up with you and Elias? What the hell is up with eating chocolate chip pancakes and pickles in the morning? In the end, I start at the beginning. My friend and I, there I go again with the word friend. My girlfriend and I, God, that sounds perfect. Focus, Alex. This isn't about you and Steph. It's about Jonah and Barbazal. We were on our way to Fort Collins for a show tonight. Oh, what do you play? He asks, intrigued. Guitar, I say. Ukulele myself, he says with a grin. Please,
Ukulele.
continue. We broke down outside of town and ended up at Elias's shop, I explain. And there's the first bloom. Blue. So Elias and Jonah make each other soul-crushingly sad. Why? What's their history? Bet he wasn't in too great of a mood since I'm back in town. Yeah, I admit, wanting so badly to ask more. And then I decide, hell, the rest of the story can wait. What's up with him anyway? Let's just say, he says, some people don't like change. Like, really don't like it. What kind of change? I ask. The kind that helps everyone, he says, smiling at me sadly. Oh, we're being vague now, are we? Like the dam? I ask, cutting directly to the chase. Something changes in Jonah's eyes at that question, and that blue aura fades into indigo, and then into a brilliant royal purple. The dam makes him nervous. A wave of disorientation comes over me. The floor sways below my feet, and swirls of dizzying magenta stars float around my head, bouncing in the air, and I hear a deep, looming cackle. I know this feeling well. Jonah's not just nervous. He has full-blown anxiety. He's terrified. Well, yes, like the dam, he says, opening and clasping his hands earnestly. I want to do the right thing by all of Colorado. And that's hard, because technological advancements like hydropower and wind power, you know, things that will really help the environment, they make people nervous. He's baiting me to ask the obvious question, why? But I'm not going to do that. You don't get through to someone's sharpest emotions by asking the questions they expect you to ask. You get through to them by shocking them into it. Is Clover nervous about the dam? He doesn't look at me. He keeps his eyes down, glued to his own hands, which he clenches together just a little bit tighter, and that purple glow remains. Clover, he begins. There's weight to her name in his mouth. I can tell she means everything to him, and I wonder what could possibly keep them apart. Clover is concerned that if the dam remains, it'll hurt Barbzal's farming community. I cock an eyebrow, letting the silence do the talking for me. That's horseshit, and Jonah knows it. Clover doesn't care about Barbazal's farming community nearly as much as Opal does, because once the farming community goes under, Barbazal goes under, and without Barbazal, Opal doesn't know who she is. I watch the dancing stars, that cackle welling up again in my ears. Something else about Clover and the dam is making Jonah scared out of his mind. Why does Clover care about Barbazal's farming community? The purple aura disappears. I fucking knew it. His face relaxes at that question, and I realize I've asked him something easily addressed with a diplomatic, tied up in a neat little bow answer. His specialty. Clover loves this place, he explains, his voice earnest. She was born and raised here like me. We went to grade school together. Of course, we both care deeply about this place. She has 11 sisters who live here, and I have. He cuts himself off, and he's quick to recover, but I catch it. Friends. A handful of friends from my childhood. Uh-huh. You don't have friends in Denver? I ask. Those bigwig donors who would pay anything to give him a seat at the Senate table. Oh, they're not the same, you know, he says, coolly dismissing my answer, but I give him a nod, inviting him to go on. Clover cares about the farmers here for the same reason we all do, he says, pushing himself up off the bench and taking a step forward towards the lake. We don't want to give up this place. I don't want to give up this place. This is my home. That's why I'm back, fighting to keep it as great as it always was. That purple aura is still gone, and I know exactly why. That was the most canned answer I've heard in a while. God, he's reminding me of Diane from Typhon. I'd be surprised if it wasn't written on his campaign website word for word. He's comfortable again. Then why are you routing water away from Barbazal? That aura is back, but this time it's red, blazing and angry as the sunrise. I reach in. And suddenly, I'm standing outside under the midday sun. It's blazing hot, hotter than it was even on that first day when Steph and I were lugging our gear miles to Barbazal. I look down, and my feet are nestled in gravel, and I hear a car engine rev somewhere behind me. I whip around to find I'm standing in front of Elias's shop? What? This is the last place I expected to end up, but then I hear my question repeated word for word from a familiar voice. Why are you routing water away from Barbazal? Hisses Silas. A Silas far different from the cheery one who met Steph and me with the most southern hospitality one can expect. Whoa, I think. I thought Silas and Jonah were cool, but I guess not as cool as I thought. Why do you care? Comes Jonah's voice. His real voice. Lower and angry. Bitter. So bitter. Another 6 months and you'll be out of here anyway. Off to do whatever it is they do in Minnesota. And you whisked off to Denver the minute you got the chance. What's so different? At least I stayed past high school. Sellout. Don't you dare call me that, barks Jonah. I've worked my ass off for this place, fighting for our rights in courthouses and council meetings. You should be grateful. Grateful, exclaims Silas with a sad chuckle. He steps out from inside the garage, nestling his cowboy hat snugly on top of his balding head, and walks back to his truck without another word. When your fancy little dam dries this place up, you'll be fighting for the rights of a ghost town. Jonah stands at the entrance of the garage with his arms folded defiantly over his chest. He and Silas may be around the same age, but Silas looks like he's been working out in the sun for decades, and Jonah, well, he looks like Jonah. And I'm back at the lake. I'm not, Jonah says to me, pausing to think through how to answer my question. I'm not rerouting the water, per se. Aren't you? The dam holds up the water where the Colorado River branches off toward Barbazal, right? Doesn't that mean more water for Denver and less for Barbazal? Not quite, he says. There's a bite to his voice that wasn't there 20 seconds ago. And he turns and looks at me with the same darkness in his eyes that I saw outside Elias's shop just now. Jonah's angry. Very angry. I'm back in my living room, watching the silhouettes of Gabe and Dad screaming at each other, teeth bared through the curtain on the other side of the record player, my only lifeline. I slip a new record onto the player, rest the needle down at the perfect spot, shut my eyes and pretend to be somewhere else, pretend like the threat of violence isn't so close I can almost see it. But no. Breathe, Alex. You're here, by this lake, in the woods with this stranger. I take a deep breath. That helps. Not quite, he says again, calmer. That helps too. I wish it were that simple. Send water to Barbazal and screw Denver. Or send water to Denver and screw Barbazal. He sighs. I know how it looks to everyone. Kid who was born and raised here in a small town grows up, thinks he's better than everyone else, and moves to the big city, where he doesn't have to be a big fish in a small pond. He stops himself again. There's more he's not saying. But to my surprise, he turns around and gives me a sad laugh. He's wound tight, and everything's complicated and compacted inside him. Anything connected to Barbazal sends him spiking off in a new direction. I'm working through all of that in therapy, he says. Oof, congrats, I guess. Jonah didn't seem like the type who went to therapy. But the reality is, he continues, I left Barbazal to help Barbazal. We've been facing climate change issues for a long, long time. Electrical bills around here are 230% of what they were just 3 years ago, which hurts a farming community just as much as a drought. Power situation is just as detrimental as the water situation, and that's what we're trying to fix with the dam. I think for a moment. I guess I never considered the power situation. So the switch to hydropower would also help Barbazal? I ask. He nods. But then I decide to press. Are you sure about that? There it is. Purple. Jets of black ink breach a twilight core, punching through his crumbling defenses. He turns back to the lake, his face composed, searching for words, probably looking for a way to make this look better. I reach in. The stars are back, dancing around me in a purple haze. I'm sitting at a huge oval wooden table surrounded by tall office chairs, and a single person sits at the very end. An older man, balding, slightly hefty under a gray herringbone suit. He clears his throat and checks his phone just before Jonah Macon steps further into the room from behind me, sending dozens of stars flying through the air. And then I notice the ceiling. A huge thundercloud sends a flash of lightning through the room, looming over us. It feels heavy and ominous, like it could crash down on our heads at any minute. I gulp, push down the urge to run from it, even though I know I'm the only one who can see it. It looks, feels so real. Morning, Senator Brickleby, sir. You wanted to see me? Jonah looks much, much younger, but it must have been only 5 years ago or so. He's the same height in his memory, just more vibrant, less, I don't know, worn down? Yes, replies the man. I wanted to see you. There's a darkness to his tone, and despite the optimistic smile on Jonah's face, clearly he's eager and maybe a little bit starstruck. I know this is about to go south real quick. I want to talk about who the fuck you think I am. Crash! The lightning flashes through the room again, making me jump. Jonah's spirit looks absolutely crushed. He shrinks to half his size as he ventures. Sir? The man, Senator Brickleby, rises to his full height and buttons one of the buttons on his suit, clears his throat again, and begins to pace. That stunt you pulled out there was unacceptable. But sir, Why would you ask me about the fucking dam? Of all things, why would you write a prompt question about that? Because if I hadn't asked it neutrally, someone else would have asked you with an angle. I can handle an angle. What I can't handle is you writing prompt questions that invite the angles. You saw what happened out there. You opened up a cesspool of questions about fucking Barbazal and the water and the river and the dam. Jonah looks near tears, and as silence settles into the room, I wonder what he could possibly do with that statement. Begins Jonah timidly. I thought the dam was important. It is important, you idiot, spits the senator. The dam might win us the goddamn election, but that doesn't mean we have to invite in the scrutiny on the way. Jonah folds his arms, and just as I think he might crumple completely, he says, "The dam will bring hydropower to small towns all throughout central Colorado." "The dam," the senator cuts in, "will bring money to small towns all throughout central Colorado." What? "When I hired you, Jonah, I assumed you had a basic understanding of economic principles. But since you apparently don't even understand supply and demand, let me elucidate." He steps forward and sets his hands on the table like he's cutting something. "We build the dam," he explains. "We create hydropower. We power Barbazal and other small towns with clean, renewable energy, right?" The senator looks up at Jonah to make sure he's following along. Jonah nods nervously, and the senator slams both hands on the table and hollers, "Wrong! We sell 80% of that power to Denver and send that revenue to the towns." "Oh," says Jonah. "That sounds kind of charitable, actually." "Wrong again," explains the senator. "That means more money to replace the public funding we already funnel into dead-end places like that." Jonah narrows his eyes at him. "So Barbazal breaks even on funding and loses water?" "Listen, Jonah, it's not my first choice either, okay? But we have donors out there who will be very, let's just say, disappointed to learn that we had an opportunity to reduce their tax liability by reducing public expenditure and didn't take it." I knew it. All of this really is a cash grab for the rich. Just not in the way Steph and I thought. They're not rerouting water to Denver just to water rich people's lawns. They're selling off hydropower to reduce public funding and lower taxes for high earners. This all makes sense now. Little Jonah Macon from Barbazal, who came out to Denver to work in a senator's office, and from how Senator Brickleby is talking to him, openly addressing him like he's worth little more than a gnat circling the fruit in the break room, tried to make a difference, tried to offer important questions as feeders on stage during what I assume was a debate or a rally, and instead of protecting Barbazal and other towns around it, his hands are tied. Jonah watched them build the dam. He didn't have a choice. The woozy magenta air swells, and a wave of stuffy warmth floods me. No wonder there's so much confusion here. Every good thing in Jonah's past is all mixed up with its opposite. Even at the beginning of his career, he walked into his boss's office wanting to make a difference, and instead he got roped into this scheme. And now, with calls for Jonah to tear down the dam and restore Barbazal's water supply, what can he do but reassure his hometown that the dam is doing them good and that the water shortage is due to climate change and not the water reroute? If he doesn't, he'll lose his position. And without his position, how can he represent the small towns of Colorado? It's twisted, and I don't agree with it, but I understand now. That thundercloud flashes a final lightning flash, sending shockwaves through my body. My hands can't stop shaking, and I feel glued to my chair. I shut my eyes against the shockwaves, which I realize are getting increasingly strong until I'm back at the lake. And I feel tired, deeply, wholly. Every inch of me wants to sleep. I look over. And that little Senate office employee, Jonah Macon, is standing before me, only years older, but aged at least a decade, little purple stars dancing over his head. He looks over his shoulder at me again and smiles. "It'll all work out," he says. "I just have to make Barbazal see it." Pity floods me, and I sigh. Jonah really does feel stuck. And I can't tell if his fear is of being found out. He's gotten great at covering up what's really going on around here. Or if something else. "Jonah," I begin, venturing into dangerous territory. "How much hydropower does the dam generate?" Oh, well, I'd have to look up the numbers on that one, but last time I checked, we were spitting out enough energy to power half the state, he says proudly. Does Barbazal use all of that power? A farming community like us? He asks. We go through power like water, I'm sure he was going to say. Well, like air. Safer choice. You, I say, thinking, you didn't actually answer my question. How many questions do you have, exactly? He chuckles. He glances down at his watch for effect, probably to rush me. I've got to get some breakfast soon. Well, Jonah, I think I've got all morning. Just one more, I promise. I have to make this one count. Really get to the heart of his fear and turn this around. When Barbazal finds out what you're really up to, Jonah, what will they think of you? Jonah's face goes completely pale, totally devoid of color. A long pause passes between us. So long, I wonder if Jonah's actually losing consciousness, which would be extremely bad. I'm out here alone, with a politician by a lake, with no cell reception. What if he has a heart attack and dies right here and everyone thinks I killed him? No, shut up, brain. We're fine. Jonah's fine. Everything's fine. That aura over Jonah's head is a brilliant purple. The tendrils coil up, this time like a crown of branches has taken root in his scalp. Spindly black spires that fork and breach and twist through the brilliant purple, sparkling with routes not taken. In them, I recognize the tree. The minute he looks down at his shoes, I seize my chance. I reach in one last time. And I'm standing behind Jonah and Clover as they sit in front of the magnolia tree. Jonah has a sandwich in his hand with a few bites taken out, and Clover is working on a pint-sized bowl of potato salad. Peak summer. You're gonna let her die all over again, you know that? She asks, her voice scathing and harried, a stark contrast to the joyful scene. The brilliant sun, the butterflies fluttering in the yard, the wildflowers dotting the grass. You're gonna kill her memory just like you've killed the rest of this town. I'm working on it, all right, darling? Don't you call me darling, she spits. Then she turns back to her potato salad, scooping up a spoonful, staring at it. It's enough to make a girl lose her appetite. You think I'd let this place dry up? Think I'd let Magnolia's tree dry up? He asks, his voice earnest. I'm doing all I can in Denver to fight this, but I have to do it the right way. What do you want me to do? Take a sledgehammer to the dam in the middle of the night? It would be better than letting those pigs in Denver make all that money off what's supposed to be ours. So Clover knows the whole story. 100% of that money should be ours, she continues, on top of the public funding we get, which is already stripped down to the pennies and bottle caps at the bottom of Colorado's pockets. I know, he says, but how do you suggest I get my campaign off the ground if I fall out of favor with my biggest donors? I have to appease both, them and Barbazal. And it's real easy to appease Barbazal as long as they don't have a clue what's happening, she hisses. You're as bad as they are. Darling. Don't call me darling again until you grow a backbone and do something. I'm not moving, and I'm not raising this baby somewhere else just because you would let our town die. He pauses, sets the sandwich down on the plate in his lap, leans over, takes Clover's free hand in his. You have my word, he says. I'll find another source for Barbazal. You gonna call water down from the sky with some kind of ritual? She mocks. Or maybe you plan on driving Silas's truck up into the mountains for ice so we can bring it down and melt it here in the valley. Anything to appease those donors, am I right? Anything to get that Senate seat. Jonah Henry Elias Macon. Jonah looks personally hurt by that statement. Clover rests her hand over her middle. I hope he's nothing like you, she mutters. And that breaks him completely. Clover. But Clover's already on her feet, marching away, and I can see her face now, framed by those red curls, the loose ones that escaped the braid down her back, falling down either side of her cheeks. And I realize this wasn't long ago. This was recent. Like, this week recent. How often does Jonah make trips down here? Silas said it had been months, so that would mean... Was this yesterday? Is Clover pregnant right now? That explains the secret relationship. As blue as Colorado is, a baby born to unmarried parents still spells trouble for a politician, and a marriage to a politician's daughter could be seen as some kind of twisted political move. Goddamn, is everything in Jonah's life so carefully orchestrated and overanalyzed? I remember his secret order at the diner. Yes, it must be. I'm back at the lake, staring up at Jonah Macon with silence settling between us like a fog, asking what either of us is really thinking. He's staring back at me with the blankest face, even unwavering. What do you mean? He asks coyly. What exactly do you think I'm up to? But that purple glow is still over his head. He may not think I have all the cards, but he knows I have some. The question is, how much do I want to reveal that I know? I guess the answer to that question depends mostly on one ultimate question I've been tossing around in my brain like a loose marble. Am I staring into the face of a lost boy, a former intern who's still scrambling to make a difference in the world? Or am I looking at a political sellout, skimming off the top of his community to appease donors? Or some twisted combination of both? His blue eyes are flickering with something, and he must realize I'm not going to give him an answer. Well, he concedes, kicking his leg up onto the end of the bench, furthest from the end where I'm sitting, and reties his shoe. Whatever you think I'm up to. God, he says up to, like it's such an outlandish idea. Don't protest too much, Jonah. I hope to win your trust as a voter this election. Whatever you believe about me personally, I hope you can get behind my cause, protecting all the communities that make Colorado beautiful, and representing all the people that make up those communities in Washington. His foot meets the ground again, and he extends his hand to me for a parting handshake. I glance down at it before looking back up at him, and I know I have a split-second decision to make. This might be my last chance to make things right here, to protect the water supply, and to stop Denver from pulling their surplus funding from Barbazal. If I can just tap into Jonah's mind one more time, maybe I can find something, anything, any solution. I have to try. Before I take his hand, I give him a smile, a grin that lingers a bit too long, a knowing expression that tells him whatever I know, it's more than he wants me to know. His smile falters just slightly, and that purple aura flares up again. Gotcha. I reach my hand forward for the handshake, and our fingers curve around each other's palms, and I'm in. One last time. What is Jonah so afraid of? I'm standing in a dark room, a bedroom with a bed so big it would fill Owen's entire living room. 2 lumps are under the comforter, one twisting and turning frantically, whimpering in his sleep. Is that Jonah? He jolts upright in bed with a frantic yelp I've never heard a human make before, and the other lump jolts to meet him. Her arms encircle his torso, and she coos at him. Shh, 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 she says. It was a dream, dear. I'd recognize Clover's voice anywhere, though it sounds slightly more grave than usual. Her wild red hair falls in waves over her shoulders, and she hugs him close with a chuckle. Were you dreaming about my dad? He thinks I'm here to get supplies, remember? Where is here? Denver? Am I in Jonah's home? Jonah, shirtless, caves in on himself, tries to slow his breathing, and looks to the window. I follow his gaze and realize I have a view like I've never seen before. The entire Denver skyline, mountains and all, lights up brilliantly against the pitch-black sky. The stars twinkle across it like I've only seen in small towns, like Haven Springs, like Barbazal. I wonder if Jonah chose this high-rise condo for that reason alone. I could see him, younger, wandering the space, unsure if he could call this home after living in Barbazal all his life, and opening the window to see the sky. Maybe in that moment he realized he could see himself here, in Denver, making a difference. Then, to my shock and horror, he buries his face in his hands and bursts into tears. Clover, somehow unfazed, turns to him, embraces him around his shoulders, runs her fingers through his hair as he embraces her back, grabbing a gentle fistful of her nightshirt like a drowning man clinging to a raft about to be lost at sea. He cries for what feels like forever, and I can't imagine what he dreamed about that would make him so like this, so broken. Clover, he finally croaks, pulling away and dragging his wrist across his eyes. I dreamed that. Shh, she says again. You don't have to talk about it. Yes, he fucking does, I want to scream. He needs to get whatever this is out. But since they couldn't hear me, even if I did, I remained silent, listening. No, I need to talk about it, he says, pulling his legs up to sit crisscross and taking both her hands in his. I dreamed that I lost everything. I lost you. I lost the baby. I lost. What do you mean, lost? Asked Clover, more intrigued than fearful, as if she's been through this before. I mean, he continues, I was falling into a hole, an endless hole, dark, cold, wet, alone. You both, he says, glancing down at her stomach, just watched it happen. Didn't try to reach me. You looked relieved, and I knew when I saw your face that I'd let you down, both of you. And then all of Barbazal went flying past me. All the faces I grew up with, everyone was staring at me in disappointment. Everyone was just... His voice threatens to break again. I try to swallow, but my throat feels suddenly dry, remembering what it felt like to fall, endlessly, into a dark, deep hole. They all hated me, he practically squeaks. Clover pulls him against her again. No one hates you, she assures him, but they might if you don't do something. Damn, Clover can be direct. Kind, but direct. He nods. I know. He knows? If he knows, why hasn't he done something? Judging by this condo, Jonah Macon is secure enough, even if it's with Clover's money, and judging by his political reach, influential enough to build his entire platform on straight-up anarchy. Down with pollution, fuck the establishment and all that. Surely there would be enough people across all of Denver to get his vote. Why toe the line when Maisie Dorsey is far right enough to have all the red votes? I hear myself grumble, the sound I don't recognize from my own throat. Frustration. But then I realize I found my chance. I know, he says again with a nod. What if I do something and it ends up being too drastic? What if it fails? And then, after a long pause, so long I wonder who's going to talk next. What if I fail? Oh my God. Jonah Macon? Big shot Jonah Macon? He's not afraid of climate change or public ridicule or private ridicule for that matter. It's much deeper than that. Jonah Macon, like me, is most afraid of failure, of being a failure. of people thinking he's a failure.
Exactly.
And maybe if I can make Jonah Macon so afraid of failure, he'll try to succeed, whatever it takes. Maybe he'll finally, as Clover's been begging him all this time, do something. I'm getting back in that car today and driving to Fort Collins with the girl I love. And if I only have this moment to help a town of thousands preserve their livelihood, then this is the moment I'll take. Before I can talk myself out of it, I reach out to Jonah, sitting there in bed with Clover. Reach into his chest and find the heart of that purple aura, twisty and sick like a snake coiling itself around a branch, crushing Jonah's heart and his resolve. I remember Steph's words. You're not just playing with emotions, Alex. You're playing with people's lives. Don't worry, Steph, I whisper to myself. And then, with all the force of Jonah's fear in my hand, I turn my wrist, rotating my fingers like I'm holding an invisible dial, turning and turning, feeling the tingling grow and grow. My skin prickles, at first like my hand is falling asleep, then like my hand has been asleep for several minutes and someone's kicked it with a steel-toed boot, and then, like cactus spines are one by one digging into my flesh. It burns. It stings. I feel tears bud at the corners of my eyes, and I shut them, grinding my teeth against the pain so intense it feels like it's ringing in my ears. It feels like I've reached into a jellyfish and grabbed it by its tentacles, which are slowly wrapping around my fingers, hand, and forearm. But as the pain sears my hand, I hear Clover's voice somewhere far away. Jonah? She asks. Are you okay? He says. I hear the ruffling of bed sheets, and I force a single eye open to see what's going on out there in Jonah's memory. He goes slowly, agonizingly for me, to the huge window overlooking the city and stands, looking, thinking. What if you do nothing? I growl through gritted teeth. What if everyone you know and love finds out you've sold them out to the state? What if they find out, Jonah Macon? What then? A new wave of searing hot pain envelops my arm, and I resist the urge to drop to my knees for some kind of reprieve. I keep talking as I force my hand to turn further, feeding the flames of fear I can feel growing and shifting within him. What about your baby? What happens when they grow up and find out their father let a dam destroy his own hometown? What happens when they find out you're a monster? I whimpered just a little, the pain unbearable now. I know I have maybe a few words left. If you don't do something, Jonah Macon, I squeak out, you are a failure. Even if I could scrounge around in the strongest parts of my mind to find stamina to withstand this level of pain, I can't. If I was reaching into a jellyfish earlier, it explodes now, sending me flying backwards. My feet feel nothing below them. I'm completely airborne, falling in slow motion. I hear a scream escape my throat, and I shut my eyes and brace for the impact of whatever I'm going to fly into behind me. But I don't fly into anything. Nothing's moving anymore. All around me is stillness. Silence so sharply deafening, it feels like all sound has been sucked into a vacuum. The smell of pond scum fills my nose, and the taste of dewy morning air tickles my mouth and throat. My forehead feels wet, the breeze cool against my cold sweat, and I look up to see my own hand outstretched, embracing the large yet smooth hand of Jonah Macon. And when I look up at his face, I'm unprepared for what I see. Those once movie star-like blue eyes have lost their shine. They're dull, empty, lost. His mouth is a flat line. Jonah? I ask. He's totally still, staring at my face like he's gazing into a black hole. He blinks, snaps out of it, but instead of his usual smiling self, He swallows, clears his throat, takes my hand in both of his, and nods. He says, like he's forgotten an important meeting. I forgot. I have somewhere I have to be. He slips his hand from mine and turns and walks. No, he flees, back down the path, faster than he ran here. Jonah, are you okay? I holler, my voice bouncing off the waters of the lake and sending a flock of Canada geese into the air a few feet from where Jonah is still running. I forgot I have an important meeting this morning. And I watch him get smaller and smaller around the lake until he darts left into the birch trees and back through the woods. I sit in silence for minutes and minutes until a chorus of honks picks up in the sky and those same geese return to their home on the opposite side of the lake. I look down at my right hand, where that searing pain ripped through my flesh. I half expect to see burns all over it, but it looks fine, feels fine. I sigh and look back up toward the birch trees, wondering if I dialed up Jonah Macon's fears enough for him to do something, or if I dialed them up enough for him to do something reckless. I remember the look in his eyes when he said he had to go. Those soulless, empty, terrified eyes. And I get a sinking feeling that I've overdone it this time. I slide my phone out of my pocket, unlock it, find Steph's number, and hit dial. No reception. I growl, jump to my feet, and start the long walk back along the path, texting as I go. Steph, I think I made a mistake. I type. Send. Steph, I think I made a mistake. Unable to send. Ugh, I grunt. Damn small towns and their spotty cell service. Maybe if Jonah can reroute that damn money back to Barbazal, they could afford a decent cell tower. I have to find Steph. Who knows what Jonah will do with that absolute terror I gave him? I reach up and dig my fingers into my hair, noticing my breathing is faster than usual. I shut my eyes against this. I feel my fingers, my hands, my arms sear with that burning stinging I felt when I connected with Jonah's fears, and I wonder what the hell I've done. Something horribly, horribly wrong. I've created a monster. I'm so lost in thought that I lose my footing, my shoes sliding down the gravel embankment, and I go flying. Ah! I scream as my face hits the water first. Freezing cold floods my clothes, my hair, my shoes, and I scramble for the surface as fast as I can, gasping down air when I get there. I cough and wheeze, frantically wiping water from my eyes. Hey, Dr. Frankenstein, Gabe would say. If Gabe were here, he would just stand there, arms folded, smirking down at me. I imagine his voice now, for comfort, for some semblance of stability. Converse? Really? He would ask. You couldn't have worn running shoes. You suck, you know that? I ask aloud, a surprised chuckle taking over my voice as I scramble out of the water and trudge up the rocky side. Out of breath and soaking wet, I cradle my arms around myself and step up onto the path. And what's with the Frankenstein thing? Gabe would explain with something ridiculous like, isn't he the most famous monster creator of all time? I freeze at my own revelation, feeling my eyes narrow as the words sink in. I didn't technically create a monster. I just turned up the heat on what was already there. Would you be a different person if you were extra afraid? He would press. Afraid of what, I wonder. Well, he would ask, were you a different person when Jed shot you? I stop and think about the implications of that. Was I a different person? I barely remember that night, but I didn't turn into a monster. I think back to the night I lost Gabe. The memory of huddling with Ryan under the cliffside while boulders as big as cars rocketed down the mountain toward my brother, at his face, at his eyes, knowing he had no time to. I interrupt my own thoughts. What if I were afraid for someone else? Someone like, oh my God, Steph. 12. Not.
So definitely a lot of emotion into emotion into emotion. It's like she was going emotion section through different times. Almost felt like their version of an Alex version of like something Max would do, because it almost felt like you were going like back in time, the deeper with the emotions you got. So it was almost like a pseudo version of like time travel or something, which is pretty cool. And we also got the continuing thing of Clover being pregnant with Jonah's kid. So yeah, no pressure on anything going on there. Clearly, with Jonah being crying and whatnot in that other in the bedroom flashback. So yeah, very very tough position with the whole dam and the money and where to spend it and things like it's uh certainly not an envious position in any way.
Not out of the woods yet. I tear through the trees like my life depends on it. No, like Steph's life depends on it. I just unleashed a highly unstable man into the town of Barbazal, where Steph is, and he's already got a significant head start. I have to make sure she's not in his line of fire, whatever that ends up looking like. Steph? I holler, darting left at the clothesline and summoning more power into my feet.
Also messing with the guy's emotion to make him do a certain thing is not the smartest idea either. Because if it was, you wouldn't be trying to haul ass right now. uh,
Why did I leave her? What's going on? If Jonah so much as laid a finger on her, and I hope, in the back of my head, in the deepest part of my heart, that Steph's okay. I look down and try my phone again as I run. A bad idea, but what choice do I have? The call drops. Damn it! I holler, feeling my foot catch on something hard, a shelf of some kind in the ground. And I land on that same stupid tree stump with an oof.
that cell reception is abhorrently bad. You think with the money, somebody you would have upgraded that stuff.
Double damn it, I mutter, pushing myself to my feet, feeling my right knee searing with pain. I look down and see the bloody scrape through my jeans and the scrapes on both my hands, and I force myself to run despite the pain. I have to find her. Come on, Steph, I hiss breathlessly, lifting my phone again, gingerly this time against my stinging hands, hitting that little green phone button and running on. Ring! Yes! I scream, my feet bounding through the withered grass until I reach the end of the tree line and the fine, lush green lawn. Mayor Biggs' house stands before me in all its glory, and I look around at the empty yard. Empty except for that lone magnolia in the middle of the sprawling grass. It's weird out here. I was expecting to hear something. Anything. Crickets, maybe? Birds? But no, nothing. It's quiet. So very, very quiet. Too quiet. I instinctively duck down low, slinking across the lawn like a jungle cat, the hair on the back of my neck standing on end. I feel a shiver go up my spine, even though the sun, which has already risen over the horizon line, is plenty high enough to start casting its merciless heat over the valley and over Barbazal. And over me. I feel the sweat beating on my forehead, and I look frantically around me as I make my way round the side of the house, between the house and the barn where they keep Big's classic car collection. Alex? Comes a voice I recognize, but one I've only come to know recently. A man's voice. Too deep to be Jonah's, too high to be Elias's, too smooth to be Silas's.
The mayor?
I turn. Mayor Biggs stands there on the lawn, maybe 20 feet from me, casually holding a glass of water. His face indicates he's confused. No shit. He told me I could come up here yesterday, when Clover would be home. Not today, too, in the wee hours of the morning, creeping around in the woods at the back of his property, soaking wet after clearly having been in the lake. His eyes narrow, and full-blown panic sets in. I need to think of a story, and quick. I can explain, I begin, as he steps toward me, warmly, so he can hear me better. Clover, oh shit, what do I say? Clover gave me directions to the lake where she's been meeting her secret boyfriend. Yes? He asks, eyebrow cocked curiously. What about Clover? Suddenly I hear a noise nearby, something mechanical. A door unlatching? The sliding glass patio door leading into the living room where Steph, Opal, and I all bonded slides open, and out steps... Clover? I ask. Her eyebrows fall at the sight of me, and she steps forward and off the patio, one hand instinctively protecting her belly before she thinks better of it and drops her hand again. And then I realize Mayor Biggs doesn't know she's pregnant.
Clearly.
My eyes grow wide, and Mayor Biggs leans in front of me to break my gaze at his daughter. What about Clover? He asks.
Uh-oh.
She, I began. Come on, Alex, think of something. You can't just tell him she and Jonah are together. Think of something else. Clover's eyes are wide with desperation, and I practically hear them screaming, Don't tell him. She gave us the engine parts. Mayor Biggs' face relaxes a bit, but his eyes trail my face, up and down, like he's reading my expression, inspecting for lies. Huh, he says, glancing at his daughter. Did she? They came out easy, says Clover, glancing at me. She seems to relax a little at what I've said. And what were you doing in the backwoods on my property so early in the morning? She was checking out the old stump, offers Clover, stepping forward, fully in the conversation now. I told her about the old stump. You know, the one as wide as your pickup truck, Daddy? Mayor Biggs looks between Clover and me like he's caught his daughter smoking weed at a slumber party. Is that true, Alex?
Uh-oh.
Yes, I say, way too fast. Way to go, me. Is that all you were doing back there? He asks.
Ooh.
Because I happened to see a certain Jonah Macon sprint out of these woods not too long ago like he had a bear chasing him.
Uh-oh.
Clover is frozen still where she stands, and I wonder if she's trying as hard as I am not to move, not to flinch, not to give any indication that we know what's going on with Jonah Macon. Now, he says, swirling his water and examining it like he's painting the sides of the glass with it or something. If one of you were canoodling with that young man, I won't mind it, so long as it's you, Alex.
Okay.
I gulp. The hell do I say? We weren't. But then I realize, if I don't admit to canoodling with this young man, do people actually say those things? Mayor Biggs is starting to sound like a cartoon character, and I insist that Clover wasn't either. I'll have to come up with an explanation for why I'm soaking wet with lake water, and Jonah is running scared for his life through the property. I realize anything I say right now is going to get me into trouble. I'm on Mayor Biggs' property, Outside the hours he said I could be here. Clover can't exactly vouch for me any more than directing me to a huge stump in the woods. Neither of those things explains the existence of Jonah. All I have left to tell is the truth. I give Clover an apologetic look, and her mouth parts as if to jump in before I can say anything more. So I say it fast. Mayor Biggs, there's something you should know about Jonah Macon, I begin, glancing back at Clover and down at her belly. What I'm about to say will protect them. Both of them. Clover and Kiddo. I hope one day she can see that and forgive me. Go on, he asks. That dam up the river, it's not just generating power for Barbazal. It's producing a surplus. Alex, Clover cuts in, but Mayor Biggs shushes her. Darling, let's hear what Alex has to say. If it concerns the dam, it concerns us all. Clover gives me one last pleading look. But I have to do this. It's producing a surplus, and that surplus is going back to the city. He pauses, staring at me like he's waiting for more. Clearly, this isn't a revelation to him. Well, yes, of course, Alex, he says finally and chuckles. That's how it works. We produce a surplus and bank it for future consumption. It's why Barbazal's never without power, and it's quite affordable for our residents. No, sir, that surplus isn't getting banked. It's being sold back to Denver, and the money's replacing a portion of the public funding you've been getting. Jonah Macon's been paying back your public funding with hydropower to appease his biggest donors. I feel my jaw cramping up from holding back tears. I'm sorry, Mayor Biggs. I can't look at him. I certainly can't bring myself to look at Clover. What must she think of me? Revealing Jonah's biggest secret? Or maybe second biggest? I stare at my shoes, expecting the inevitable questioning. How do you know this? Do you have proof? Where is Jonah now? But he stays silent for so long that I wonder if he's going to say anything at all.
Where the hell did he go?
When I finally look back up at him, he looks from me to Clover and then back to me. You're sure of this? He asks. I nod, frantically, hoping, praying he'll believe me. For his sake, not mine. Barbazal's well-being depends on it. But instead of questions, instead of wanting to find out more, I feel a hand clamp around my wrist and another hand slap over my mouth. Hey! I go to scream, but it's muffled against warm fingers. Mayor Biggs is pulling me against him and starts to move. He's dragging me across the lawn. If I can just get one good scream out. My teeth search for his fingers, but his hand is cupped. Damn it. Daddy! Screams Clover. Shut up, Clover, and help me keep her in the house until we figure out what to do. Let go of me! I holler, my voice muffled under his hand. I look up as he pulls me along, that brilliant red aura pulsing above him, and then it sinks in. Oh my God, this is my fault. The whole yard goes blood red, the air swirling with clots of what look like tissue flying past my eyes. I yank and struggle in his grip, but his fingers against my arms just make them ache more. This isn't Biggs. This is the Biggs I created. And if I created this in Biggs, what have I done to Jonah? Clover steps forward and grabs at her father's arms, trying to pry them off me. Let her go, she shrieks. She's done nothing wrong. Not yet, he hisses. I won't hurt her, Clover. Don't worry. But we have to keep her quiet. My shoes can't find traction in the grass because Mayor Biggs keeps lifting me up so far I can barely touch the ground. My screams find no ears, I'm sure, but I release them anyway, scratching at his hands and arms as often as I can to get my own hands free. Where the hell are you taking me? I shriek, but it comes out like a pillowed, garbled mess under his palm. But I get my answer. Mayor Biggs drags me into the house, and as soon as I'm back in that living room with the leather chairs where Opal drank too much wine and nearly killed herself, he lets me go. I drop to the floor from the force of it and wipe the taste of his fingers away from my lips, glaring up at him. What the hell, man? I spit. I'm doing you a favor, and you're fucking kidnapping me? Not kidnapping, he grins, as if we're discussing a news article over a nice lunch. I just want to talk. Maybe I've been on the internet too much, but that I just want to talk is my first clue that he definitely does not want to talk. He won't hesitate to stop talking and start swinging if I don't do as he says. Daddy, begins Clover again. Clover, lock the front door. It's a command, not a question, and I half expect Clover to stand up to her father in defiance. Where is that sharp, fierce woman I met just yesterday? She melts away, and Clover obediently goes to the door and does as he says. I wince as I hear that door clasp, sealing me in here. Now, he says, folding his hands together behind him and walking around me. I'm still kneeling in the living room as he does. Alex, you told me you and your friend aren't journalists, but for a non-journalist, you seem to have uncovered some hard-hitting truths. He won't ever know I can see into people's emotions. I wish he'd give me one. Just one aura, and I could probably get myself out of this. For a man driven by anger, he's impossibly locked down. The thing about commanding a small town run on love and compassion, Alex, is the people are counting on me to keep them afloat. What a horrific choice of words for someone steering a town through a drought. And if I have to do that by selling some of our excess hydropower to Denver, then that's what I have to do. It was you? I hiss back. You authorized the dam that's baking this town dry? Why? You need those farms to pull in revenue. What's the point? You're shooting yourself in the foot. He chuckles condescendingly, as if he's realizing just how much dumbing down he needs to do to get me to understand his position. Who said Barbazal was going to stay a farming community? He asks. That's no way to adapt an economy to climate change. Now manufacturing. That's sustainable, even in a drought. But we don't have the experience. Our people know agriculture, and we know tourism. Or at least we did, when we were the only rest stop on the 202. But we're not out of the game yet. I cock an eyebrow, wondering how the hell he plans on bringing Barbazal back into the tourism game. A theme park would do it, wouldn't you say? He asks, with the biggest grin on his face. He can't be serious. How are you going to run a theme park with no water? Well, with an economy-boosting attraction like that, Denver would be a lot more likely to funnel water back our way, wouldn't they? They seem pretty keen last I talked to them. Everyone's on board but you, Alex. I think of Silas rationing the water bottles in his truck. I think of Anita trying to keep the plate and skate alive and thriving even through these heat waves drying up the little water they have. And I think of Clover, holding that goldfish bowl, offering it up to the magnolia, unable to care for the fish that meant so much to her in her sister's absence. No, I reply, they're not. I look up at Clover. Tell him, I say. Tell him what you told me. Unless you're in on this too? I feel a coldness come over Clover. An icy, cracking, stiff as a glacier, blue hue settles over the room. She begins, probably unsure of where to begin or if she should continue. She swallows. Not. Mayor Biggs looks to his daughter in disappointment. You're not what, Clover? I'm not in on this, she says, determination knitting her eyebrows together as she looks from me to her father. Daddy, You're not seriously going to do away with the farms around here. What about the Bates? And the mint farm we visit every year for Christmas. Opal loves the hay rides there. This isn't about nostalgia, he growls back. This isn't about your feelings, Clover, or Opal's, or any of you girls. A tiny volcano spits up a bit of lava in my stomach at the way he says you girls when talking about feelings. The irony being that we're only in this mess because of his feelings. The man who invited Steph and me into his home to help us get out of here. As if even Biggs doesn't care for his own tone, he dials it back, sighs, rests the heel of his hand wearily against his forehead, and finally clasps his hands together in an earnest gesture to his oldest daughter. Clover, darling, please understand, he says. I'm not doing away with anyone or anything. We're building the park here in Barbazal, right by the lake. We're not mowing down anyone's farmland. But with the revenue pulled in from the park, some of them will have to make tough decisions about whether to remain an agricultural enterprise or adapt to the times. Being a farm out here just isn't sustainable anymore, sweetie. Clover stares at the ground, thinks long and hard about what to say and do next. Then, to my surprise, she walks to me, steps up behind me, rests her hands on my shoulders as I remain kneeling and looking up at Biggs. We're letting Alex go, she says. She's done nothing wrong. Just because she knows about your little scheme. Plan, he says. Not a scheme. Don't you understand? I'm doing what's best for Barbazal. And I'm doing what's best for my family, she says, raising a trembling hand to her stomach. She stands behind me in silence, but I look up, over my head, at Clover. And sure enough, a fire engine red aura emanates from her, scorching the room. It bores into my skin with a fury so bright and white-hot that I don't even have time to scream until it fades and soaks down deep into my bones, until all that's left is a humming warmth. Big's face is aghast, his mouth parted in disbelief. Clover, he says, you're... And if you want to be in this baby's life, I suggest you do what's best for your family, she spits. Holy shit.
Exactly, holy shit.
Who's the... he asks. I don't see how that's relevant here, she continues, taking on the tone of a lawyer in a courtroom. Your job is to look over us, to protect Barbazal, founded on pillars of love and compassion. And you're currently unlawfully detaining a tourist, the exact demographic of your stupid theme park, in your living room to cover up what you've done to see it through. Is that really the legacy you want to leave, Daddy? Mayor Biggs forms a brilliant blue aura of his own, coiled with ribbons of searing red. Tears begin to form at the corners of his eyes, and a sad smile plays at the edges of his mouth. Clover, please try to understand. It's what your mother would have wanted. It's what Magnolia... You're killing Magnolia, she spits, her voice breaking. She was only here for a short while, and the only thing we have to mark her life is dying because we don't have enough water to keep anything alive out here. Big's blue aura disappears, and his eyes narrow. Maybe you both need some time to think this over, he says. I look up at Clover in alarm. What the hell does he mean? I want to scream, but Clover follows my thoughts without even looking at me. She smiles. What are you gonna do? Tie us up and toss us in the cellar? She sneers, arms folded. I watch Clover, silently willing her not to taunt this man whose anger I've dialed up past overwhelming and into out-of-control territory. Everything is still pulsing red with the warmth of rage, and I can't tell whose is more intense. Then her smile fades. Her eyes widen in horror, and I hear a click. I gasp, looking back at Biggs, who's now pointing a shiny silver revolver straight at me. I don't think any tying will be necessary.
That escalated extremely quick.
13. The cellar. The cellar isn't much like the cellars I've seen in movies. Those ones are always wet and drippy and gross, maybe a little moldy even, and you can smell the stuffiness through the TV. This one is spotless. All old wood, cedar by the smell of it. Wine bottles laid out in little U-shaped holders line the walls, displayed like trophies through the years. From where I sit, I can see one with a label marked 2006. Whoa, I marvel, for a moment completely distracted from the fact that I'm in a hostage situation. I hear Clover sigh from a little further into the cellar. She sits with her legs curled up against her chest, her arms around her knees, face lowered, and I realize she's crying, softly. Clover, I begin, but where do I even begin? I'm sorry. She looks up at me, not angrily, but in surprise. I'm sorry I didn't leave when you said I should have, I say. It was a mistake staying here. I'm sorry I insisted on seeing Jonah. I'm sorry I told your father about Jonah's plan. I can't believe Daddy was in on it, she grunts, smacking her lips in disgust. At least Jonah told me about the dam, about what was really going on. But he left out the part about the theme park. After a long, bitter silence, Clover nods. That must be why he was so set on our family moving to Denver. That explains everything. He knew that the Barbazal we both grew up with, her voice crumples into a million pieces, was going away. He lied to me. She buries her face in her hands and descends into sobs, deep, body-wrenching sobs. Clover, I say, scrambling to find some silver lining, offer some comfort. Maybe he knew it would break your heart. Why do it then? She snaps. To think I wasted so much time on that man, building a life in Denver, building a family. And for what? She drags her arm across her eyes and rests her chin on her knees. Her face, it breaks me. But we have to get out of here. Mayor Biggs didn't take my phone off me. Didn't even ask if I had one. When I pull it out and look at the screen, I remember why. No signal. But I also see that I have a missed text from Steph. Steph. Hey, you okay? Either your conversation with Jonah is going super well, or you're locked up in a basement somewhere. Holy shit, Steph. I want to scream. You have no idea. I let out a deep sigh.
Woman can predict
the
future.
I say. I'm sorry. I really, really am, Clover. I can't imagine what you're going through. Even though I literally can. I feel that same icy coldness envelop me from earlier. A welcome release from this inferno that's been buzzing on my skin from Clover's wrath. My words, somehow, have replaced it with despair. But, I continue, I might have a way out of this. I can text my friend Steph, but I need reception. Pfft, she scoffs, glancing past me. Good luck. Daddy had this cellar signal blocked because his poker friends used to be on their phones instead of talking. I turn and look to where she glanced, and see, all the way down the hall, a huge geometric table with a green top. Must be a poker table. Is there any way to get signal down here? Come on, Clover, think. To my dismay, she turns completely away from me, curls her legs up again, and wilts against the wall, blue aura still glowing overhead. Fine. I feel annoyance welling up, but then I remember Clover doesn't really have anything to escape from down here. She's in her own house. I'm the only prisoner. I push myself to my feet, determined to get the fuck out of here. Steph is out there somewhere, definitely wondering what's taking me so long, and definitely a sitting duck if Mayor Biggs went to find her.
ruins or
So help
something?
me God, if he so much as touches her. I charge deeper into the wine cellar, past bottle rack after bottle rack, until I find the far wall with the tiniest window I've ever seen, high up near the ceiling. Clover, where's the ladder? I know there has to be one somewhere in here. No way anyone could reach those bottles up there near the top. It's at least 10 feet up. They're sliding ladders, comes Clover's voice, weak, defeated. Good luck pulling them loose. We'll see about that. I look down the hall and find a wooden ladder fixed to the shelf, from the floor to the top of the rack, and I make for it. I reach out for it, try to wiggle it. It won't budge. Clover's right. This thing is practically fused unless I slide it. Yep, it'll move from side to side. Until I see a sledgehammer in the corner between the rack and the wall. Yes, I whisper, grabbing it and lifting it high above my head. Hey, what are you... comes Clover's voice. I don't wait. Wham! The wood is unmoving. Wham! Hey! She calls. I can hear her scrambling to her feet. Stop! Daddy'll kill me! If I stop? Wham! He might kill both of us. Wham! The top of the ladder comes free, hanging off the rack. One more blow to the bottom and... I feel the hammer catch over my head, and I look up to find Clover's hands clamped around it. She yanks it from me, and I stare at her blankly for a moment. Am I really about to wrestle a hammer out of a pregnant woman's hands? I stop, holding out my hand as if I'm keeping a snarling dog at bay.
Maybe.
Clover, please, I offer. I don't want to fight you, but I have to get out of here. Please understand. I won't let you destroy anything else here, she says, and I know she's not talking about the ladder anymore. She's talking about everything. Since I got here, Opal was sent back to the hospital. Clover found out her father was in on a plan to strip Barbazal of its lifeblood and build a theme park in place of all her childhood nostalgia. And finally, the love of her life, or at least the man she thought was the love of her life, was orchestrating the whole plan. If you help me leave, I say, I'll never bother you again. I feel tears welling in my eyes, realizing I couldn't help. Couldn't help Barbazal, couldn't help Jonah, or Opal, or Clover. All I've done by staying is make things worse. Steph was right. We should have just left. Alex? I hear a sharp whisper ring out from somewhere nearby. I know that voice anywhere. And suddenly, I don't care how menacingly Clover's holding that hammer. I turn around toward where I heard the voice, and up there, way up there, near the ceiling, on the other side of that little window I was trying to reach earlier, is the face of the girl I love. Steph! I whisper back, my voice almost breaking into an elated scream. How'd you find me?
Exactly.
But I already know. She knew to meet me at dawn. But then how did she know to go snooping around basement windows? I could hear that hammering from across the yard, she says, her voice urgent. More important question, how did you get down there? She looks around to make sure the coast is still clear, and then lowers her voice even further.
It's a funny story.
Who put you down there? Biggs, I say without hesitation. Clover's down here too. Clover comes up behind me, gingerly, as if apprehensive about letting Steph help us. What the hell? Can you lower a rope or something to us? You think I just have rope lying around? Asks Steph. She turns away from the window and I hear shuffling. There's a rope hanging on the side of the barn, offers Clover suddenly. Thanks. I smile at Clover. That aura of hers is purple swirls of writhing vines, and I wonder if... Wait, it clicks. Your father can't legally keep you in here either, you know, I say. This isn't right, what he's doing to you. He knows I'll talk, she says, cradling her arms around herself. Will you? I ask. knowing what it would mean for Jonah if she did. After a long moment, she nods. Flip. I look behind me where I find a 10-foot rope hanging from the window, where a smiling Steph greets me. I smile back. I climb, promising myself I'll get back in the gym and do some more lifting so this isn't such hard work. I reach the top and turn to help Clover climb. But it turns out, even while pregnant, Clover is more in shape than I am. She's right behind me. Up we go, I say, pulling her through the rest of the way. And we're free. 14. The lawn. Or at least I thought so. Until I turn and find myself staring down the barrel of a gun. It startles me so bad I stumble backward and nearly fall against Clover and Steph. I stretch out my arms instinctively to shield them behind me, although I really have no idea what the hell I'm doing. I've been here before, on the business end of a silver revolver. That same sick feeling coils up into my throat and sends my heart rate into hyperspeed. Biggs is looking over the sight at me with narrowed eyes and a cunning smile. Alex, he sighs. I had so hoped I wouldn't have to do this, you know. You can't shoot us, Steph barks. Alarm bells ring out through my head. Steph, I whisper over my shoulder, hoping she fills in the rest. Not a good idea to challenge the guy with the gun. Everyone in the town will hear you, Steph explains, clearly not filling in the rest. She has a point, right? I hope. Mayor Biggs begins his answer by cocking the gun. Click. That's a fabulous point, he explains. And when the three of us remain silent, he waves the gun toward the tree line before yanking it back in our direction. It's the start of hunting season. If I, as a law-abiding citizen, went for a stroll in the woods back here on my property, and I heard a noise, I'd be well within my right to deploy my firearm to bring down a deer or a rabbit. Or even in good old-fashioned self-defense. Shit, he's right. But I know not to say anything. Apparently, Steph and Clover do too. Especially after finding 2 reprobates sneaking around my homestead. Daddy, comes Clover's voice. And you, he snaps, his grip on the gun tightening. He thinks he's going to scare me with that. To be fair, he's right. I'm fucking terrified.
You think, I don't know, everybody huddle behind Clover. I think she would be the better human shield in this situation for him not to shoot somebody.
I can feel my fingers shaking even as I continue holding them out on either side of me. And then that red aura blooms over Mayor Biggs' head, warming us all again with brilliant heat, and I'm the only one who can get us out of this. I have to talk him down. Clover, move out of the way, he says. I look up at him, studying his face, his eyes wide and wild, his hands trembling ever so slightly. She's not going anywhere, I say, my voice shaky, and I'm sure unconvincing, but I'm sticking to it. Alex, what are you doing? Whispers Steph from behind me. It's okay, Steph, I say, lowering my hands to either side of my body and stepping forward. All at once, Clover and Steph gasp, and Mayor Biggs flinches, but he takes half a step back anyway, red aura twisting in on itself like a smoke cloud forcing itself into an origami shape in the sky, geometric outlines turning over each and folding into magenta, and I realize he might be bluffing. This isn't the man you are, Griffin Biggs, I say. You love your daughters more than anything, all 13 of them. His eyes grow even wider as it sinks in that I know more about him than he realized. So you've done some Googling, he spits. No, I say. I've studied. I know you're a broken man, and your life has been full of the greatest joys anyone can know. I glance over my shoulder at Clover with a smile, then turn back to Biggs, pointing at the magnolia across the yard. And the greatest sorrows. He doesn't follow my finger. He doesn't need to. Blue explodes all around us, suffocating and heavy. I look down at the grass as it withers rapidly beneath my feet, the plants in the yard, the trees, all of them bending and convulsing as the life is sucked from them. They brown and shrivel, and lastly, so does the magnolia. Everything around us, everything Biggs has cultivated here, is dying. I turn back to him and reach my hand out to him, acting like I'm trying to keep him at bay. But I'm in. I'm standing in a hospital room, and I immediately remember standing beside my mom as she squeezes my hand as hard as she can. I barely feel it. But no, this isn't my memory. It's the memory of Griffin Biggs. And there he sits, cradling a tiny, tiny bundle wrapped in pink. He's facing away from me, shoulders trembling as he rocks back and forth. "Griffey?" comes a voice from nearby. A gentle voice, much like Clover's, but slightly older, smoother. I look to the hospital bed, where I find a woman in her 40s with messy, dark waves of hair falling over her shoulder. She opens her eyes groggily and moves her hands to sit up. "How is she?" she asks him. He sits, frozen, staring back at her. "How's our little girl?" My heart is thundering in the silence, so hard that it feels like the loudest thing in the room. Wisteria's eyes wander from Biggs to the bundle and then back up. Her smile falls. "Honey?" she asks. And I'm back. I feel my cheeks wet with tears, and I look up at the gun pointed at my face, the man holding it, at that blue aura around his head. "The greatest," I repeat, searching for words. "The greatest sorrows. But, Mayor Biggs, you have 12 of life's greatest joys, don't you? And 13 reasons to put the gun down and do the right thing." Biggs' eyes dart from me to Clover behind me, and then back to my eyes, his wild and crazy. 14, thunders Clover from behind me, hand over her middle. She steps out from behind me, behind my wall of protection, and in front of me and Steph, staring down her own father. "Clover," I say. "It's okay, Alex. I know what I'm doing," she assures me, glancing over her shoulder with a faint smile, weary and sad. "Look around you, Daddy," Clover says. "We grew up here. This is our home. You taught us to fight for what matters, for what we believe in. Well, I believe in Barbazal." I feel Steph reach forward and grab my hand, squeezing tightly, her fingers trembling in mine. I turn and pull her close against me, both of us still behind Clover. "Alex," Steph says, and she doesn't have to say more. I understand. There are so many things I could say to her right now. I love you. I'm scared too. I'm sorry. I know, I say, burying my face in her neck as I hear Clover continue. "You can't just uproot us all," she hisses. "Some of us, literally." I hear a movement of fabric and realize she's probably gesturing to the magnolia. "Now," she says defiantly. I feel her hand rest on my shoulder. "You're going to put the gun down, and you're going to let these two lovely ladies go on to Fort Collins, where they can play their music and change the world for the better." I feel a gentle squeeze on my shoulder. They've already changed Barbazal's. I look up at Clover in absolute shock. "What?" In a single day, I sent her little sister to the hospital, outed her boyfriend baby daddy as a low-life politician ass-kissing sellout, and provoked her father to commit at least one felony. Well, I guess that last one's still unproven in court.
change is change, though. You did change things. Whether it's for the better, have uh, we still have a little bit of the story left to uh, to determine how the consequences of all this is going to shake out. But we'll see.
Still, the first two would be offense enough to shoot me herself. But I study her smile and realize something. I guess Clover really does value the truth above all else. All else. Ugh, growls Mayor Biggs, shaking the gun at the three of us. Clover spreads her arms to shield me and Steph and whispers, "Stay behind me." Slowly, Clover begins to walk backwards, and we move with her. "Clover!" exclaims Biggs, his voice gruff and unrecognizable as the buttery-voiced, warm-smiling man who told Steph and me all about Augustus Jeremiah Oscar Rhett Barbazal II back at the statue. "Just where the hell do you think you're going?" "I'm leaving, Daddy," she says, her once strong voice now soft yet sure. We look ridiculous, I'm sure, like something out of a silent film. Steph and I huddled behind Clover, who walks backwards, shielding us as we make our way to the other side of the backyard, around the side of the house and to the front yard. We continue our shuffle across the circular front driveway and down the hill until Mayor Biggs, now maybe 30 feet away from us, standing up on his front porch, gun at his side, studies us. "You're not going anywhere easily," he growls. I can hear the shaking in his voice. It sends a chill through me. The hell is he doing? What does he know that he's not saying? And then I look behind us at the tree line, and I remember that it's at least a mile walk downhill into town. "Clover," whispers Steph when we reach the steps leading down from the property and stop. What does he mean? I glance over at the trees again, knowing what comes next. "Run," whispers Clover to us, and suddenly we're all bounding down the hill, dodging trees and roots and sticks, rocketing through the forest like our lives depend on it. Bang! 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 Crunches an explosion of leaves to my right, and the realization sinks in. These aren't warning shots.
Clearly. Okay. So, with that running for your freaking life situation at the end there, I guess that is one way to the finish off the story for now. So, the I guess you could say mastermind uh, revealed to be the mayor the whole time, pretty much. Uh, so, which pretty much what was it? Jonah's political opponent. What was her name? Maisie. I think it was Maisie. But her pretty much kind of being a red herring. Like she's kind of just there. Like haven't she hasn't really played any real big part in the story or anything right so far. So yeah, there's that. But in any event, so the I would assume that well, one he's already crazy enough that he's shooting his gun off at them. Especially when it's like your pregnant daughter is also kind of running with them, so you ever heard of stray shots? Like, that would be a problem, you know. So yeah. Oh. Well, in any event, um, not pretty almost action movie cliffhanger on this one with the running from a crazy shooter here. But we'll see what happens. Well, we'll hear what happens next time as we continue this this story and see how this crazy situation so far even wraps up. Because besides the whole big situation with this, with him chasing and shooting people, we also have the thing of what the fuck is Jonah even doing, like right now? Because remember, the whole thing is after his emotions after Alex kind of pressed his buttons, emotional buttons, he ran off. And they were originally, before running into Biggs and everything, were trying to chase after him and see what, and try to catch up to him and what the fuck he's about to do. Well, he's doing right now, because clearly he's already up to something after the whole Biggs thing, and then being stuck in the basement, and then Steph being able to be curious enough to be like, yo, I'm gonna go look for her myself, and being able to get them out. But then this whole mess with more guns. so yeah. So in any case, uh in any case, JR here will see you, hopefully see y'all in the next one, and I hope you guys are enjoying this so far. And if you are, I hope you continue to enjoy. And I will catch you guys in the next one.